I have so many people that reach out to me and ask me, how do I start with instructional design? How do I build classes? What LMS should I be using? What technology do I need to use? And I think this idea is really exacerbated by the fact that so many job descriptions of instructional designers out there actually come out and say, experience with learning management systems, experience with Storyline Articulate, experience with Adobe Captivate, and so many other technologies that are out there. But the true essence of an instructional designer isn't the type of technology that you use, because I'm going to let you in on a little secret. When I started instructional design, I didn't have any experience with any of those. But because I was a fast learner and I was good with technology, I could learn those skills on the job. No. The key to an instructional designer is actually the planning of a course. What do I mean by that? So my entire process of instructional design actually starts with like 6 to 8 weeks of planning. It means that we're actually thinking about the course. We're not doing any sort of investigating technology. We're not doing any sort of planning what learning management system we're going to use. We're not doing any sort of building a Storyline Articulate or anything like that, because you can't build anything until you have the plan, until you know what your goals are for the actual course or the training, until you know that the students are going to actually learn what you're hoping for them to learn, until you know what activities, what readings, what types of videos you're going to create, what kind of interactives you're going to do. No, you can't build anything until you have all of that planned. So as an instructional designer, my first 6 to 8 weeks with subject matter experts are really spent just writing on paper. I know, it's crazy, because as an ID, we kind of assume that we're automatically working in technology. Sure, when I say on paper, I mean like Google Docs or Word documents or anything like that. But we're not actually building into any of these fancy technologies that are out there. In fact, a lot of my courses don't even have them. Why? Because before I even decide to integrate technology into anything, I want to make sure that that course and the content and the way that you want students to learn and the what you want students to learn is there. Because students aren't going to be successful unless they know what they're learning, why they're learning it, and whether or not you can actually assess and measure whether or not they've learned what your goal was. So those first 6 to 8 weeks are really just spent on setting up the topics. What topics do you want them to learn? What are your course goals or course objectives? And by objective, I mean writing something measurable. For me personally, I use Bloom's taxonomy. I know there's a ton of other taxonomies out there, but I use Bloom's taxonomy just because it's kind of the most common thing. Sometimes there's a little iffiness in terms of the verb that you use, and sometimes I tell my faculty, I'll be 100% honest, it's just semantics. As long as you're actually aligning that assessment or what it is that you're going to have students show you what they learned, you don't have to worry about what word you're using. So if they're using describe, you're not going to have them do a multiple choice test. They're probably going to go work at a discussion board, or they're going to do some sort of reflection or something like that. If you're having them create a website, you're not going to have them do a multiple choice test. So it's just things like that, just making sure that the alignment of that verb, whatever verb you use, as long as it's part of the Bloom's taxonomy, is aligned to that assessment. That's all that matters with that. It's really not as hard or as thought-provoking as it needs to be. So once we actually have the topics, we have the course objectives, we start kind of building out the assessments. And what I mean by building out is, I don't mean that we're in the learning management system, we're building it or anything like that. No, we're actually just thinking about, where is this assessment going to go? Where will you have reflection? Where will you have student-to-student engagement? We could potentially be also writing the instructions for this if that actually works well with the flow of how we're working, but we're not actually building anything. And what does this allow us to do is that by planning all of this ahead of time, it lets us see the big picture. When you're actually building in the LMS as you go, it's harder to see the big picture because you have to go back, change something, realize you misspelled something, missaid something, now you have to go back and change that again in the learning management system. Whereas if you're just working on a Word document or a Google Doc, specifically Google Docs because you can actually share and work at the same time in them. But with Google Docs and stuff like that, you can go back and see this module aligns with this assessment down here, or this module is the continuation of this module, and it just continues, and you can go back and edit things as things come up. It makes it way easier. And then guess what? When you go to develop, it's literally just copy and paste. I promise, it's so easy. It makes it so much easier when you spend more time on the actual planning of the course than the actual development of the course. Okay, going back to the planning. So we have our topics, we have our objectives, and we've thought about our assessments. Now it's time to think about how are we going to actually showcase to students what they need to learn. That could be through readings, that could be through articles, but I make sure to actually have those links there so when I go to actually create the course, it makes it real easy. I also encourage anyone not to use the full course link, instead use meaningful text for accessibility, and then also try to use the citation, whether or not that's APA, MLA, Chicago, anything like that, because it allows the students to kind of go back and record or make a copy of that or reference it even easier for them if they're doing a reflection in their own words. So we can do readings, we can do videos, maybe they create their own videos, maybe they pull in some YouTube videos, or interactives or engagements. This really just allows us to see the big picture, but then also chunk down into smaller pieces. It also allows us, so let's say you're through the course and you realize, oh, I forgot a course objective, or oh, that course objective is not worded correctly. Think about it. If you had actually started building the learning management system, you then have to go to each page, click edit that course objective, and every single learning guide or every single thing that shows that in the learning management system. In Google Doc, guess what? It's a whole code. Control F and replace, or add, or something like that. It makes it so much easier when you actually focus in the planning and in the Google Doc or the Word document, or even I've seen people do sticky notes behind them or anything like that, rather than actually building as you go. So, wrapping up, we have to remember that while technology is really important for learning management systems, for instructional designers, all of that, I'm telling you right now, the core things that you need to be able to do is write an objective, make sure that there's alignment between the objective and the assessment, and know Bloom's taxonomy like the back of your hand. I'm not gonna lie, I still have a little cheat sheet that's on my desk at all times, because that way I can reference back to the different types of levels of Bloom's and the types of verbs that go with that. Once all of that is done, then you can go into the actual development into the course, whether or not that's building a learning management system, or that's building into Storyline Articulate, Adobe Captivate, videos, etc. I hope this video has helped you. Be sure to share, subscribe, and I will see you next time.